Hey, everybody. Welcome in. I'm going to give it a minute or so for folks to join. But while we wait, as I always say, drop in the chat where you're calling in from. So I'm Brian. If you don't know, I'm based in New York City. And as always, we've got a couple Kilo team members in the chat from around the US. We also have a very special guest joining us also from New York. So drop in the chat where you're calling in from, and we'll get started in just a minute. I'm seeing Ottawa, London, Vienna, Turkey. I love that we have such a global audience. It's awesome. I'm also curious, is this a good time for everybody? Because we usually do it at this time, 12 p.m. Eastern. Now that I'm thinking about it, we have such a global audience. I think it's a good time, seeing as a lot of people from around the world join. But let me know if you all would prefer a different time on Fridays. Um, yeah. All right, I'm gonna give it one more minute and then we can get started. All right. Sounds like this is a good time. Just don't mess up someone's happy hour, Chris said. This can be a happy hour too if you want. No judgment here. All right, we can get started. So cool. Welcome everybody. As I said, I'm Brian, developer relations here at Kilo, and today's session is going to be a little bit different. So that usually the Kilo show is a bit of a variety show about all things Kilo, but today we're really focusing on KiloClaw. So if you haven't heard about it, I'm sure you've heard about OpenClaw, or most of you have. KiloClaw is our cloud-hosted, fully managed OpenClaw. So the idea is that you can spin up an OpenClaw instance in our cloud infrastructure with one click. Super easy, skips the whole setup struggles that people have with OpenClaw. It's automatically natively connected to 500 plus AI models through the Kilo gateway. So it's basically the fastest and easiest way in the world to get started with OpenClaw. You just click a few buttons and then you're in an OpenClaw instance that's ready to go and helping you right away. So today we have a couple special guests. We have Emilie and Ari from the Kilo team, who have both been on the Kilo show before. And then we also have a very early contributor to the OpenClaw project, my friend John, who actually hosted an event with in New York City last night for OpenClaw. So I'm super excited that he's here. I'm going to call him up in just a minute. But yeah, just as a run of show, we're gonna do. I usually do slides. If some of you have been here before, I kind of wanted to drop that and just have more of a conversational thing going on. So there's gonna be no slides today. Just gonna maybe do a quick demo at the end, give you some time to do Q&A. And then I'm gonna give away $50 of credits to 5 random attendees and 5 T-shirts as well. And as I've been saying, the only thing you have to do to qualify to get that credits, or to be considered for the credits and T-shirts, is to ask a question. Just one question in the questions channel in the chat, and I'll do a Q&A at the end, and we can help answer those. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome John RDE to the stage. John, if you want to hop on.
Hey, Brian.
What's up?
Yo.
Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I had a great time last night. As I mentioned, John and I did a little event in Lower Manhattan where we met up with a bunch of people who are also very excited about OpenClaw. I got to share a little bit about KiloClaw. So yeah, I want to hear more about kind of how you. So I know that you were super early on OpenClaw. I want to kind of hear your story about how you found it, what got you excited about it, and kind of what's your journey been since that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I saw all these crazy posts on X and I was like, there's no way this is real. And then I started, seeing more of them and I was like, wait, there's something to this. And so I clicked to the repo and it's got like 1,000 stars on GitHub. And it's just a small project, but I'm like, this is really interesting. There's no MCP.
Mhm.
It's got skills, it's got tools, and it's got agentic use, and it's like Claude Code on steroids. I was like, okay, there's something here. So yeah, I just started getting into it, downloaded it, hosted it on my computer local, and before any of the security updates, so everything was raw. But yeah, it was a really really great time. It changed my life, changed my work, everything.
Yeah. So what were some of the I'm curious to hear more about some of those like early days. I know you were helping kind of maintain and contribute to the project. Like what was that like at the beginning? For context, for people who don't know, I think there's like close to 400,000 stars or something on the repo now, and you got in when it was like 1,000. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear more about what you were doing.
Well, I mean, back in the early days, it was really choppy, like
Mhm.
super lack of continuity,
Yeah.
no security, basic functions didn't work. If you've ever used the internal browser, I'm the reason that works, and because when I started, it didn't. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, like I needed to do some stuff on like LinkedIn and X for me, and so then I built the browser relay to where the agent can talk to the browser that it's using, and it doesn't have to like like sift through JS code and stuff. But yeah, like the most frustrating thing back in the early days was really the lack of continuity,
Right.
lack of ability to stay running, and this thing just died all the time. And it was like you had all this amazing capability, but then it would just break every like day.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I am curious to, one, how you're using OpenClaw right now. And for a lot of people in this call, they're probably maybe using it through KiloClaw. As someone who's kind of seen the project through from very early days to the hype that it's at now, what do you think is like the best way to take advantage? Or what are some tips that you can tell people who are using KiloClaw?
Yeah, so I think it's like I like to think about it like tokens or action units, right? So I
Mhm.
like to, and this kind of sounds odd, but I literally like to spend tokens every day. Like I try to spend as many tokens as I can every single day, because to me, every token is like an action, a unit of action.
Mhm.
And so like I want to step into like the future of AI. To me, that means that I have AI agents running for me, doing things, automation and leverage. And the more tokens I'm using, the bigger that leverage is, and the faster I'm going. And so, like, I think some concrete use cases are like you have, your social media, you have your things you want to say to the world. And
Mhm.
I think that your AI agent, like your OpenClaw on X, on LinkedIn, gives you the ability to like see what's trending, give
Mhm.
you reports every single morning of like what matters, what you should pay attention to. And I think it really just allows you to kind of take the world that's coming at you in such like a large bandwidth and
Yeah.
consolidate that down, with the help of AI, to something you can actually like, you know, take a bite of and do something really powerful with.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Are there any like from for that use case where you kind of have this feed of news from X and LinkedIn, are you giving it your credentials? Does it have its own accounts on X and LinkedIn? And like what are the skills or tools you use to actually make that workflow work? If you can share
No,
that.
yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was one of the reasons I worked hard on the browser. And it's
Mhm.
not the extension relay. It has its own built-in browser, and that maintains the session over time. X and LinkedIn and a lot of other platforms work really hard to keep bots and automation off of their platform, and so you have to work pretty hard to get your bot to be on that platform and to consume that information. So
Right.
maintaining the session, keeping the browser open, really is like the core to that. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, you can also pay for their API and do it that way. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then kind of shifting to how you and I met, which is through the community that's like building around OpenClaw. I'd love to hear like, like what how your experience has been, where you see this going and how I guess this is like a phenomenon in that the community is the reason why this blew up. It's an open source project, obviously, and there's so much excitement around it. Like, how has that been for you as someone who was early on it?
So yeah, I mean, when I first started working on it, I was like, maybe we'll get to like 20,000 stars or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And then we blew past like 20,000 stars. I'm like, no way, this growth rate's insane. Like if this continues, we're going to be like one of the top projects in the world.
Yeah.
And like here we are today, like it happened. It was
Yeah.
amazing. I get goosebumps thinking about it. But the coolest thing about the community is like, you know, other people are catching fire with understanding how powerful it is and what's possible. And then at the same time, it's also like, you know, we opened up this Pandora's box, like this can of worms, like no one knows what to do anything with. And it's like hearing what other people are doing, how they're using it is like super inspirational to me, because I'm like, one of my friends had his AI spend like 30 minutes on the bank dealing with a charge he didn't want to deal with. And it was like perfectly resolved. I'm like, no way. I don't want to make those calls.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I mean, from spinning up like an accountant agent that does all my accounting, I don't want to do, to the marketing agent, to the one that calls the bank. I mean, the possibilities are unlimited, and I haven't even begun to like figure out what's most important next, you know. So I'm just looking at what's next.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am curious if you've heard any, like, what are some of the crazier use cases that you've heard, if any? I know the banking one is pretty cool. I've heard a few interesting ones. I'm curious.
I mean, the craziest thing I've heard is like someone used it to like he changed his whole life in like a weekend. He like got a divorce. It like filed his divorce for him. It like sold his house. He like listed it and sold it for like a low price. And like he did some other crazy stuff with it. But I couldn't believe he like let it full send his life like that.
That is crazy. I mean, if anything, I guess it's like a testament to the power of the technology. So like maybe approach it with care as well. Because yeah, I mean that's pretty crazy, because there is a wild spectrum of what people are using it for, from just basic like read my email and give me a report to stuff like that.
I think the one thing that I think the crazy use cases all have in common is like, you know, take action on my behalf, but don't consult me about it beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's something that I never let happen. I call it, you know, read access, but not write access, which basically means, you know, developers speak like read access. You could read everything that's going on, read all my emails coming in, but the write access is not there, which means you can't just respond. You can't just take action. And so, you know, I think as long as you're responsible with it, like you're approving everything that comes through, yeah, you're good to go.
So I am curious about that approval workflow, because that's something I've heard a lot of people say is I give my OpenClaw read access. It generates the action items that I'll do. Like with your setup, how does that work? Do you have like a dashboard where you send them off, or do you just do it manually, like copy and paste? Or
yeah, so like I use the chat, right? I have all these rules, right? So I think what people really need to understand is this is like the core architecture of OpenClaw is rules and skills. Rules and skills are really, really important. Rules are always read and always followed. They need to be short. And the skills, they can be like multiple pages, and they're loaded by task.
Right.
And so I've optimized like my rules and skills to, you know, like I have a rule that says you can't send anything unless I approve it. And that's a really basic rule that anyone can copy. You know, just say, don't ever send anything. Don't press the action button until I give you full approval. And then the other one is like, I have it when it sends emails on my behalf, I have like a few rules, and these are in the skills because it's like when you're sending an email, you know, load the email sending skill. And then in that skill, it says, you know, like we have a bunch of things about how I talk and how I sign off and how I like my emails formatted, and how when you reply to people, you have to reply all, and little things like that. But if I didn't do them, I would just come across like odd or different online or something, you know. But you need to be able to be you, even when it's not you, when it's your agent acting on your behalf. So yeah, that's like the main thing.
So you do have the agent does have some write access, but it's gated behind like very strict rules essentially.
It has the write access after I approve it. So like if I have an email go out, I have a lot of people that I talk to, you know, like I do these deals with like this defense contractor I'm working with right now. We have this really big deal, and like it sends emails on my behalf, but these are like high stakes, you know, emails. If I mess one of them up, I might just blow or derail the whole deal. So the way that it sends and formats and everything, and I'll text with it in the chat, and then it's reading the new email coming from Ikram or whatever, and I'm like, okay, this looks good. Yeah, like, no, I think we should say that. And then we had this other discussion, so add that, and then it drafts it in the text, and I'm like, okay, go, and it sends it off, and I sound really professional, but I got to bro speak it all the way to that level, which is perfect for me.
That's awesome. Okay, and then just one more question before we bring on our next guest. But I'm just curious from your perspective, where do you think this is all going? Like, this is iterating so fast. The technology is changing like daily. What do you see? Where do you see it heading? A few months or even in like a year, if that's possible to imagine down the road.
Oh yeah, no, I think about it all the time. So like, my opinion is highly like charged. I really think if you don't have this, you're left behind. I think if you're a company and you're like, oh, resistant to AI, we're not gonna, oh, this is dangerous. You're gonna just be left behind, because it's like a race. If you imagine like horses coming out the gate, and then like halfway through the race, everyone says, would you like the free rocket upgrade? And like, you don't put that rocket on your horse, you're definitely going to lose. This is both enterprise and personal. Like, you strap that rocket on and you gotta go. And the other thing is, like, there's like a meter to it too, so like, do you want your rocket on 10% or 100%? And I think you gotta full send it and go all the way. So that's it. I really think you have to join the movement. You have to be a part of it. This is the future. So it's either be part of the future, create the future with everyone else jumping in it, or get left behind. And I don't want to see anyone doing that. Probably everyone on this call is not doing that. So I'm glad you're here.
That's a great analogy. That's awesome. And I agree. Obviously, we're excited about it here too. Well, thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it. Maybe we'll have you back on again someday. And if anyone in the chat is in New York, hit us up. We've been attending and doing a bunch of OpenClaw, KiloClaw related events. So I'm sure we'd love to hang out with you. Thanks, John.
Absolutely. Good being here. Good talking to you guys. Later.
Bye. All right, cool. That was awesome. Round of applause for John. That was great. Great insights on especially the early days of OpenClaw, which I think is super interesting. But without further adu, I want to bring on our next guest, who's a recurring character on the Kilo show, which is Emilie Shario, our Kilo co-founder and leading engineering here at Kilo.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, Emilie. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Friday in these parts.
Thank you. Yeah, same to you. So I saw a couple mentions in the chat. I think there's a mix of people here who have heard of OpenClaw, have used it, haven't used it. As I mentioned briefly, I'm going to do a little bit deeper of a demo in a bit. We have KiloClaw, which is our cloud-hosted, fully managed OpenClaw. And you as leading engineering here at Kilo have been very close to it from the beginning. So I just want to kind of hear your thoughts on one, like, what are the basics for those who might be new to the KiloClaw world? Can you give us the elevator pitch? Like, what is it and why did we decide to build it?
Yeah, I would actually step back into like, remember where we were when ChatGPT came out and it kind of took over the world, I guess you could say. Like, totally. It went from this thing that I could chat with that suddenly I could get an instantaneous answer, right? It's right. Q&A. But then the next step after that, and I think what developers have been in for the last, let's call it 2 years, is agentic engineering, right? It started with tab autocomplete, and then you had the agent editing files, and now we're seeing editing files, putting up PRs, reviewing those PRs. Like, we have had this experience of agents doing more and more for us across more and more domains over the last couple years. Yeah. And when vibe coding tools like Lovable, Bolt, and Kilo's app builder became really mainstream, I think that made it so everyone could see, I can finally build my own software to solve my own needs. Right. And in a lot of ways, software is a UI on a database for some workflow you're trying to manage, right? And the thing that I get so excited about with KiloClaw and some of what John was covering just now is that we don't need that UI anymore.
Right.
Everything you want to get done that previously you'd say, we have to build software for this. Now you can talk to an agent to do that for you. And that is the unlock of KiloClaw for me. You know, it is hosted, managed OpenClaw in a secure environment where we are making it really easy for you to get started with the accounts you need. But the biggest thing, the biggest aha is that it is an agent that you can tell to do stuff and it will do that stuff for you. And so for a typical user, for someone who doesn't know what OpenClaw is, like, it doesn't matter. It is an always on agent that's there to do whatever you tell it to.
Yeah, totally. And I think another part of it that is interesting that people who have experimented with OpenClaw know, but maybe some people who haven't don't know, is that it's also always on. So you can tell it to do things later. You can tell it to do things regularly, and it will always be working on that. What's kind of the difference between that experience and what we're used to with other AI tools, and what makes that so important?
Yeah, so I'll answer the question in a specific example.
Yeah.
And you know this because we've talked about it, but I'll share it for the audience here.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 little boys, 1, 3, and 5, scattered across 2 different schools. And they send, oh my God, so many emails. Like, oh my God, so many emails. And so one of the first workflows that I set up was that all of the emails that come from school and daycare get auto forwarded to Chad. Chad is my bot. Chad has its own email address. So all those emails come into my inbox. They get auto forwarded to Chad. And then I get a daily digest from Chad once a day. And so Chad can take all those emails, see what information is relevant. It knows which kid goes to which school, what grades they're in. So it's not telling me about like the high school softball team's football program, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's telling me the things that are relevant to me. I think that I don't need to go ask it every day. Hey, what emails came in that are relevant to me? No, I've taught it. We've created that workflow. It can now do it reliably, and I get just the information I need on a regular basis. That is the unlock of having an always-on agent that you basically give it a timer. Like mine, I think, is at 6 o'clock every day. Every day at 6 o'clock, it checks its email and it sends me what I need.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then another thing that we just shipped somewhat recently is kind of like the connected accounts piece of it. So if anyone in the chat has manually set up OpenClaw on like a dedicated machine or set up Google or GitHub or whatever else, you probably know how taxing that is. And even with some of the other like self-host or cloud hosting options are out there, it's not super intuitive. So we made it so that it's easier to connect your Google, your GitHub, your messaging accounts right when you're provisioning the KiloClaw instance. What does that actually unlock for you, and what does that open up in terms of the types of people that actually can use the product?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was looking at a friend's OpenClaw instance the other day, and she had connected to some of these accounts by just like giving her bot the API key. And then when we were looking at her config files, like in the SolMD, it just like stored her personal access token, her API key in plain text.
That's not great.
And you know, it's a bot. It's going to do exactly what you tell it to. But like anyone who has ever seen one of those like instruct me on how to make peanut butter and jelly sort of videos on the internet will know that like we are terrible at giving instructions. And so there are all these things that you have to be worried about with security, with ownership, with access. And I think the best framework for thinking about it is when you hire a new person. So Brian, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I hired Brian into Kilo, which like one of my great feats here. And on your first day, did we give you admin access to 1Password and Slack and all the tools? No, right? So people give all the credentials and then they're like surprised when the bot emails the CEO.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's the same sort of coaching, guidance, that you have to be explicit in what you want. You have to give credentials, tell it how to store it securely. And what we've done is just like remove the risk of having to guide it to the right security. Instead, you can onboard via Kilo. We walk you through what are the creds you actually want or need, and make it really easy.
Yeah, and I think another thing that Brendan from the Kilo team, which a lot of you already know from previous webinars, I'm sure, says a lot, which I love, is like you should be treating it as a junior employee the same way you just said when I first started. You didn't give me GitHub over like, full access or whatever. You should probably give your KiloClaw agent like its own dedicated account, its own Gmail account, its own GitHub account, and then you can, if you want, you can give those accounts kind of delegate access to some tasks, but you should probably never give it access to your, like you mentioned, your own GitHub and whatnot.
That is exactly what I've done. Chad has its own email address. It has delegated ability to create and edit events on my calendar, but it cannot manage sharing on my calendar, for example. So the same way, if I were to give access to my calendar to someone on the team, I would not give them that level of permission. So
totally,
you got to find the balance.
Yeah. And then one more question for you, because I know you got to jump in a minute, but this is kind of the big picture question. Where do you see personal AI agents going from here? Like when you look at what people were building at ClawCon, we heard from some 15-year-olds that were making like $30K a month setting up agents for people. There was a guy controlling a robot with OpenClaw. Like, where does this all go in the next year?
My crystal ball here is a little bit cloudy.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I'm not going to pretend to know all the answers. I think everyone's going to have an AI agent, an always on agent that they can talk to that's going to delegate to like dedicated agents with specific skills. I think the thing that I get really excited by for the future, especially leading an engineering and product org, is we're going to be able to come to work and decide what we're working on that day. There's not going to be a backlog of tasks because as they come in, we're tackling them. You're going to come into work and decide what you're building that day. And I think that's a future that I am super excited by, because then the speed of creating customer value is the speed of thought.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for that future too. But yeah, thanks so much for joining, Emilie. I really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Brian. Always a pleasure to be here.
Bye. All right, cool. So I know we're kind of a little behind schedule. I do want to bring on Ari, who leads partnerships at Kilo, to kind of talk about some model news. But while I talk to Ari, so if you hear what's going on, Ari.
Hey, there we the model having background persists from previous.
Awesome. Love it. So yeah, I kind of want to do like a multitasking segment here where we walk people through setting up KiloClaw real quick, and we also hear from you on like the latest news. Does that work for you?
Good idea.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Shipped so many great UI improvements, and the whole flow is just like honestly so much better, like 100x better than it was a week ago.
Yeah, even 2 days ago. Like if you've been using KiloClaw and you deployed your KiloClaw agent like a week ago, this is probably going to look completely foreign in a good way, I hope. So this is what it looks like. If you go to the dashboard, app.kilo.ai/claw, and I'll paste that in the chat again for anyone who didn't see that. You'll see KiloClaw is at the top of the cloud features now, and when you're presented with 3 options here, which are kind of our auto model routers, where Frontier switches between some of the the more expensive but better reasoning Frontier models like Opus and such. Balance is kind of a mix between cost and performance, and then free is obviously free models. And then Ari, maybe this is a good time to kind of ask you about some new model drops that have happened over the past week for anyone who might not know.
Yeah, sure. And just so everyone's aware, like this is kind of, it's been a new experiment, this idea of having the auto modes, but it's going really well. I think it's reducing friction, obviously. And then we had a lot of internal debate. Do we make it like, is it just Frontier and free? We were thinking about having one mode that was just for open source, but definitely for people just getting started with the claw, like, try out a mode and see what you think. We're going to rotate through different free models, and eventually maybe go between like larger and smaller free models too within the free mode. And yeah, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but yeah, so I just got back from GTC, the NVIDIA conference on the West Coast, and of course there were some OpenClaw announcements from NVIDIA themselves. They kind of shipped a security layer too for people running the claw themselves. And they also were talking a lot about their own training of the new Nematron model. So Nematron 3 Super, which is still free in Kilo. And it's not behind the free auto mode right now, but I think we might try it. Yeah, there it is. And this is a really amazing model. An interesting thing about it is that part of their focus with their own training was a model that could then help build other models. And
that's crazy.
The same week we had Minimax launched M2.7, which should be there too. This is, I think it is probably the model that trained itself, basically like created the new version of itself the most. I mean, it wasn't totally, there were humans involved, but that was the big announcement from them. And they also have they've always had a really unique approach to reinforcement learning. And now they've been adding on a bunch of sort of essentially like agentic flows that help improve the model itself. So really interesting. And I think this is just a sign of things to come. And again, those are both great models designed for agentic work.
Yeah. And we wrote a little blog post about it on the Kilo blog, which I just pasted. But so Brendan on our team created Pinch Bench, which is also something very cool that basically benchmarks different models and how good they are in OpenClaw. And it's basically become the leading benchmark for that purpose. And so far that NVIDIA's Jensen, CEO, actually displayed Pinch Bench on screen during his keynote speech. So that was pretty incredible moment. But it's also useful to just figure out which models are best in OpenClaw. And I think when Minimax M2.7 came out, it ranked like number 5 behind like some of the other frontier models, which is a bit higher than maybe you'd expect for like a model of this size. But
yeah, definitely. And I think the Xiaomi Mimo V2 Pro and Omni. Pro has been the most popular for KiloClaw. There should be a free.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's free, but maybe not.
Anyway, so those both also ranked really high on Pinch Bench right out of the box, which is interesting. And not that everyone's looking at Pinch Bench before using the claw, but I think that benchmark is actually like a pretty good indicator of which models are best to use for OpenClaw.
Yeah, and it's also getting better. And it's open source, so if you want, you could contribute.
Yep.
Yeah,
and actually, we're working on V2, so looking for contributors, and I think we'll share more info for the Pinch Bench.
Yeah,
we'll share more info probably later today or Monday about how to get involved.
And also, before we go through this demo again, I just remembered we also, to celebrate the Xiaomi Mimo V2 launch, which is their latest model, we're also running a contest kind of with them. That's the wrong link. Which is basically, if anyone here participated in the worst website hackathon that we did a couple weeks ago, which was like our biggest hackathon ever, funnily enough. We're doing another one, which is like the worst CAPTCHA contest. So we want you to create like the most absurd CAPTCHA possible. Where, like some examples where like you have to scream into the mic loud enough or something. And there's already a bunch of people that are participating, but it's open for the next 4 or 5 days until Wednesday evening of next week. So all you have to do to enter is use Kilo and Xiaomi's Mimo V2 models, which are free, and create some ridiculous CAPTCHA. And then the grand prize is $500 of Kilo tokens and a $250 Amazon gift card. And then there's credit prizes for second and third place as well. And we'll promote what you built and whatnot. So it's just a fun little quick challenge that I'd encourage you all to participate in. But anyway, let's get back to the claw. So let's go ahead and maybe we'll do Jami's model here. And then all you got to do is click get started, and it's going to walk you through a couple of onboarding steps. So you can choose kind of YOLO mode or having it ask you permissions. And basically this is just setting the OpenClaw configuration with some permissions here. I like to use allow everything just because I do a lot of demos and unserious projects here. But if you're, handling secured data or workflows, you're probably going to want to choose the other option. And then for anyone who's not familiar with OpenClaw, the primary way that people interact with it is through like a third-party messaging app. So basically OpenClaw is this agent that's always on and orchestrating all of these tasks for you. And it natively kind of integrates with a bunch of different messaging platforms. Most people use Telegram. It's like become the most popular, which is sort of just like a basic messaging app where you can connect and then just DM your bot, and it can give you updates there and give you feedback there. So when you click that, it'll give you some quick and easy directions on how to get your bot token, which is this one token you need to set this up. We'll open Telegram just to show you what that looks like. Here we go. So I have my own Kilo bot that I was messing around with here, but you just go to BotFather, you type, and this is instructed in the onboarding on the Kilo page as well. You just go to new bot. It asks what you want to call it. We'll call it Ari bot.
We can't see your.
Oh no. Okay. Sorry.
Are you in Telegram on the web? Or you?
No, I'm on the. I have to share my whole screen.
Oh, yeah,
1 second. All right. All right. So this is what BotFather looks like. You just open it. It'll open a conversation. We'll start over. You go new bot / command new bot. It asks for a name. We'll say Ari bot. And then it asks for a username, which has to end in bot again. So we'll go Ari bot. Oh, that's taken. What? We'll go Ari.
It's not taken by me. Mine is called something else.
All right, cool. So then it gives you an action access token, which you can just click to copy. And then you can go back to Kilo here, and you just paste the bot token and continue. And then it's going to set up your instance. And since it's going to take a minute, we'll just go over to my other personal account where there's already one set up. And this is kind of what it looks like once it's set up here. So I have it connected to, I guess I don't have it connected to Telegram here, but you just click open, and then you're in the OpenClaw UI, which you might be familiar with if you use OpenClaw, but this is like where you can do some more in-depth configuration if you want. Like you can give it exec approval, which basically means you can allow it to do certain things or not do certain things. You can add skills, but the primary way that people talk to it is through Telegram, and you can instruct it to do whatever you want through Telegram. So this is one of my other bots where you can basically just say, like I said, monitor New York City news outlets and give me a briefing every day at 8 a.m. And it's going to go ahead and like start. I have it on YOLO mode here. It's going to start installing the skills. It's going to add blogs. It's going to set up a daily cron job to fire at 8 a.m. And you basically just communicate with it here, and it can honestly configure itself if you want it to start, giving you those workflows. Another, kind of value prop of KiloClaw versus other similar like cloud hosted things is that we have this on the settings here on KiloClaw. Once it's deployed and you can go to settings, we have these kind of quick setup options for Telegram. If you want to connect Discord and Slack as other messaging options, you can do that too. And then what's really helpful is GitHub and Google. So if you've set it up yourself, setting up Google is like nearly impossible. It's still a little bit difficult, and we're making it easier every day. But with this, if you have Docker, you can literally just copy this command, and it will walk you through step by step how to do it. It takes like a couple minutes to set up a Google account. As I mentioned with Emilie before, it's probably smart to create a dedicated Google account for your bot. Don't give it access to yours unless you don't care about what it's sending via your email. And then GitHub is pretty simple. You just give it a username, email, and then personal access token from GitHub, which you can get to from linking here. And then there's even a virtual agent card and some other batteries included that are coming. You can change the model after it's all set up. And then another useful thing is that you can upgrade to the latest version of OpenClaw seamlessly without kind of worrying about wrecking your configuration. It will just handle that for you seamlessly. And then you can check out. As you can see, there's several updates shipped nearly every day on the changelog here. So that's KiloClaw in a pinch, no pun intended. But the idea is that this is actually going to continue to get easier to use, continue to get easier to become easier to manage external accounts, to give OpenClaw access to these accounts so that it can actually do more and more things for you and on your behalf. So yeah, I would challenge everyone. I would encourage everyone who hasn't tried it to give it a try, because it is still the free trial period right now. So you can make a KiloClaw and mess around with it and use a free model and try the whole thing completely for free and get set up in a few minutes. So yeah. Ari, you want to help me answer some questions? We
Sure.
got a bunch. Let's do it. Okay, I'll go through the question list here. Okay, we'll say here's a good one. What are some use cases for a developer? So I can think of a few. I think the first would be, as I mentioned, you can connect it to GitHub and you can have it work on code for you if you want. You can give it prompts, say, if it has its own GitHub org, you can have it create repos. I know Brendan on our team basically has his bot, has granted his bot its own GitHub account, and it basically uses GitHub as like a home base. It stores like any scripts he wants, any automations, like any code that he's working on. If he wants to, automate, emails or slides for a presentation, that's all done through GitHub. So I guess for a developer, it'd be similar. You can also use it to like automatically triage issues if you want. If you give it like delegate access, inbound issues on a repo you're maintaining or something, it can start working on that. You can just ping it to make changes in a GitHub repo if you want. So those are just a few ideas. Let's see. I'll try to find another one. Okay, I've read about OpenClaw, and there could be some security implications in terms of allowing it to do anything. Are there any limits or controls? So yeah, I think, for KiloClaw, one of the like inherent security upgrades is that it's in its own like dedicated virtual machine, basically. So it starts on a fresh slate computer. A lot of people that were having like security issues were early and maybe downloading on their own device where there's API keys lying around or there's credentials lying around in the files or whatever, because it can access like your terminal. It can pretty much access anything that's on the machine you give it. So when you have a really proactive, super aggressive agent and you ask it to make sure a task happens, it's going to use all the resources that it can to make sure it happens. So I think, as John mentioned, if you were here for his section, it's a super powerful tool. I think it's an important tool, and so important that it's risky to not, use it. But at the same time, you have to be thoughtful and careful about how you use it. So one way is through rules. I know that we're kind of working on bolstering the native security features that come with KiloClaw kind of on top of OpenClaw, but there's also a bunch of other security skills and rules that you can add to it to make sure it doesn't do anything you don't want. And the main way is just not give it any right API keys, not give it any right access.
Yeah, I would echo that. Stick with read access to start, and it's a good starting point. And sort of we've tried to add as much security as we can at each layer. So the storage, you get private storage that's totally encrypted, and all the way up to top level, like Brian was saying.
Yeah, exactly. This one's maybe one for you, Ari, but can KiloClaw run on purely free models?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether it's just totally free model or it's just currently free in Kilo, it will work, and there are no limitations. And there are a lot of I would say that kind of free and just generally open source models have improved a lot and added, are getting better and better, more context, better agentic capabilities. So totally no limitation.
Yeah. And also, like, thanks to Ari's good work, the models that are free in Kilo aren't, always free everywhere else. Sometimes they're like paid models that we have partnerships with, and you just get to use them for free by being part of the Kilo ecosystem. So I think we're definitely at the point where free doesn't necessarily mean worse in a lot of cases.
Totally.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna find some more.
I can take a stab at, do we plan to integrate Kilo Bench? So someone must have seen that we've started to
well, actually,
run some of our own bench.
Let me add some color here. This is Arav who won our hackathon during Developer Week by creating his own Kilo Bench. So I'm guessing that's
cool.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, then maybe then you can answer, Brent. I mean, I can give a general answer on benchmarks. Like we're exploring a lot of different types of benchmarks and evals. We've tried to, with the new auto modes that Brian was showing earlier, we're kind of using our own benchmarks and evals to help automatically not just recommend, but just automatically use the right models for the right tasks and modes. And we're also looking at integrating pinch bench data to start into some of our kind of public resources around models. Because obviously there are a lot of questions about specific skills. But for this project, which sounds really cool, I do remember this from the hackathon. I don't know, what do you think, Brian? Are there plans to?
Yeah, I mean, so as Ari said, we are kind of working on various benchmarks internally too. But Arav, like as I DM'd you in Discord, like we were super impressed with your work, so we owe you a conversation for sure. Maybe we'll keep that as a little fun little secret for now. Yeah. Okay, I got one I want to answer real quick. Any update? I actually saw a few about this, about Gastown being added to Kilo. So it's good to hear that there's excitement around that. And yeah, so the beta will start imminently. I don't have the exact timeline, but a bunch of people signed up for the beta. Steve Yegi, who created Gastown, seems excited about it. I'm excited about it. I think it's kind of another sort of agentic hurdle, and I keep going back to John's great analogy at the beginning, which was like these tools are like if you're in a horse race and you have the opportunity to strap on a rocket to your horse and you don't take it because you're concerned about how crazy it'll be or whatever. I butchered what he said. He said it much more articulately, but the point is like Gastown is like a crazy agent orchestrator that's super aggressive, kind of just like guerrilla attacks a coding task. But I think it's one of those things that if you don't get on board with things like that, you might get left behind because it is extremely powerful, and it can get a ton done in a shorter amount of time. And I've been experimenting with it. It's a lot of fun, super powerful. I can say that if you're on the beta list, which you should be, if you haven't already joined, which is at kilo.ai/gastown. I'll share it in the channel as well. You should join because you're going to be emailed very shortly with access. So stay tuned for that. And I saw a couple questions about this, but that's pretty much what I can say right now. So Pete said, is this a separate thing? Are you talking about, if you're talking about Gastown, it is separate. So it'll be, like right here, it'll be another thing in your cloud. And since John gave a demo last week, I don't see why I can't just show you what it will look like. Let me pull in this. Yeah, so it'll just be like, can you see my screen?
No.
Oh. It's showing for me. Hold on. Now?
loading. There we go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so basically we have KiloClaw here, and we'll have Gastown here. And John, the engineer who built Gastown, demoed this at the last Kilo show. But basically, you'll create a town, you'll start prompting the mayor, and there's a whole other dashboard inside that I'm going to hold off on showing you, but this is a sneak preview because if you're on the beta list, you're going to get access very soon. Okay, cool. We'll maybe do like 2 more and then we'll call it because we're kind of over time here. Let's see. Okay, how is the memory stored for KiloClaw? How is it secured? So right now it's like it is hosted OpenClaw, so it's using like the same architecture. It just is OpenClaw right now, with some kind of batteries included, as I mentioned, and with provision setup and all of that. But in the future, I think we're gonna have kind of enhanced, bolstered KiloClaw native memory and secret managers. So stay tuned for that. But right now, I believe it's just using like the native OpenClaw memory. One trick that Brendan on our team uses is that when you tell it to do something or you tell it to set a cron job or to remember something, sometimes it's useful to ask it straight up and say, well, how are you going to remember that? Did you write that down somewhere? And then sometimes if it forgets to do that, it'll be like, oh, you're right, I should write it to memory MD, and then it will. Okay, we'll do one more. And I'm sorry, these are great questions, everybody. I'm sorry we can't get to them all, but we only have so much time. All right, this is a topical one that I think, a lot of people want to know, and maybe some people dance around a little bit, but how much are people generally spending on KiloClaw each month for inference, not the hosting cost? And I think the answer to that is it's such a vast range. Like I know people that are spending 10K a month on OpenClaw or more, like 20K a month. I've met people that are spending no money because they're using a free model and free trial hosting on KiloClaw right now. I don't think, to correct myself, I don't know if anyone's spending 20K a month on KiloClaw, but I've heard some hardcore OpenClaw maintainers and stuff who are like super involved with the project, and before KiloClaw even existed, spending that amount of money. It really comes down to what you want it to do, and what model you select. So I think for most people, like it's fair to say they're spending like less than $100 a month on general tasks, maybe around that. I don't know what you think, Ari, but it is hard to, yeah.
I know, I think that's about right. Because there was, I was on a panel at GTC with actually some of our model lab partners like Minimax and ZAI that have also launched their own claws. And that seemed to be the consensus, was like for people using it for kind of one specific, really kind of using it as a bot, like one specific task or set of tasks, it's like somewhere around 50 to 100 a month once you really get it up and running. Because even if it's, we say it's always on, but obviously if it's just running a cron job every day, it's not using that.
Yeah. And of course you can, if you're concerned about cost, you can use it for free through Kilo. But yeah. And as John mentioned, like it was interesting to hear his perspective on token usage, where he was saying he tries to spend as many tokens as possible because he sees like every token he spends as an investment in like advancing his relationship with AI and the optimization in his life, I guess, which is really interesting. And I'd be curious to hear how many people, resonate with that. But yeah, I think that's kind of all we have time for today. I'll reach out to the 5 lucky winners of the t-shirts and credits, but I'm so grateful that you all joined. I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you all again next week. And thanks to you, Ari, as well.
Yep. Good to be here, and thanks everybody. This is great as usual.
Bye, everyone.